Hi everyone, this is video log number 7, and in this video I'll be documenting how to read a text file in Python. Also a text file that's inside a zip file, a text file that's been compressed into a .gz, and also a text file that's inside a zip file but that is also compressed. I chose a comma separated value file, but you could have chosen any, this demonstration is good for any other standard delimited file. Also, the file is quite small, it's about 20 kilobyte in size, and I want to demonstrate what's it like to read in memory and also line by line. That's the main goal of this demonstration. Another thing, the file is a daily closing prices of Google that I downloaded from Yahoo Finance, and so yeah, let's go and see. Alright, so first let's read a plain vanilla text file, in this particular case a CSV file, and I'm going to be spending a lot of time in this section because later on it's just a matter of learning a few more techniques to traverse down the layers of compression to be able to read the files, but this is where I think we should all focus the most. Alright, first set a variable and type in the open function. You're essentially opening a stream to a file and setting it into a variable. I named it A. I know single letter variables are stupid, whatever, but let's just do it. File as string is equal to a.read. Now what a.read does, it reads the whole thing as a string. I'm fairly confident I can print this. I'm not going to jam up anything. It's because it's a very simple and small file. It's only 20 kilobyte, but imagine if you have to read a huge file. This is probably not the way to go. Okay, when is this ideal? It's ideal when you have to read a small paragraph, a passage, like a password. Here, let me quickly do a demo on that. What do I mean by that? Alright, I'm going to touch password .dat, and I'm going to echo the word password into SHA-256 sum. Oh, and then I'm going to save it into password.dat, right? Now let's come back here, and I can say open, I believe it's password, right? Password.dat, .read, and oop, the connection to my Raspberry Pi is kind of slow from here, so it takes a bit to resolve the file name. Okay, if I do that, this is what it looks like, right? It's a small file. It's not a lot, so you just want to quickly read something. This is the way you would do it, and it just, as soon as it's done reading, it's going to close the stream too. So password.dat.read, here are a strip. See, nice and clean way of reading a small item, and this is when you would use the read function. Okay, next, read lines as a list. In this method, I'm going to have to do this all over again because it's already closed. So file as a list would be a.readlines. So I'm going to print this too because it's not a big, oh, sorry. File as list, file as list. Oh, shoot, I didn't run this yet. Let's do it again. Do it again. This is what it looks like. In fact, wait, never mind. I did, but it's saved as this, right? Okay, let me delete that and print out the correct one there. So read lines reads the entire file as a list separated by line, aka the /n. So you see all these /n's? That's where the readLines function decided to split the file and then put them into a list. This is still pretty okay. It's good. I mean, the file exists like this, and you read it, and you could do something on it, which is still good, except the issue here is, again, if you were to deal with a huge file, what if you were to read like a 15 gigabyte file with millions of records in it? I don't think you want to do that because A, you're going to spend a lot of time reading the file, then you're going to have it in memory. And a lot of you can say, you know what, hey, we could just put them on, you know, Amazon EC2, put a lot of RAM into it, but that's cool, but not very efficient. So essentially now if you have to traverse or iterate through the list, you would say for line in file as list, you know, do something on something on this line. In this case, I'm just going to print them, right? This is what you're doing. So first you read, because remember inside this function I'm pretty sure there's also some sort of looping going on to read to the end of the file. Then you're writing another loop to do some work on it. Okay, how about we go to the next method. Let's copy this. I'm gonna call this read line by line. Here all you're doing is opening up a stream to the file, and you're saying for line in let me show you the other method, a.readLine, right? A.readLine reads a line at a time. Okay, you can say a.readLine again. So remember that's the header, and that's my first row after the header. This is my second row, third row, so forth and so on. Well, the way to go through all of them without having to use either the readLines or the read method, you say for line in A, just print me the line, and there, it did that. Let's do it again. Open it up. I'm going to call it header is equal to that, right? And maybe I should just print the header. I don't want to do it now because the second, remember, if I run this again, it's going to take the first row after the header, set it as header, and print me the header, which is wrong. Next time I run it, I'll show you. This is the thing. That's the first line after the header, and this goes through again. Let's do it again. What happened? Oh, never mind. Run that. There we go. Now header is set. Okay. So this is how you read line by line. Let's make an application so you get to see what I'm talking about line by line without having to save it into memory, and then you're doing some work, and you're also exporting the item that you're working on while at the same time while working on that line. So here, let's demonstrate. Simple application by read line by line method. Okay. I'm going to call it A is equal to that. Header is equal to a.readLine. Let's take care of that. B is equal to open. I'm going to point to another file called goog.calc.csv, and I'm going to make it writable. There. Okay. Now, what I want to do is, so let's see, what I want to do is, I want to take the high and the low and get a mid price, or like the average price, and then append it to the end of this line. And I don't want to do it by reading the whole thing into memory. So how do I go about doing that? First, let's save the header the right way. So my head, if I was to do rs strip remove all any or a space at the end of the at the end of the line, or rs strip means the right hand side of the string. Okay, I'm going to strip that line, the space. In this case, it would be the new line, or /n. Looks like that, right? There we go. And then I'm going to add something called average price. Let's call it that. Okay, and then add the new line at the end. There. Okay. I should probably save this, right? b.write, and I'm going to take this whole thing, write it here. Nice. Done. Okay. For the next consecutive lines, that means everything that is underneath the header, what I want to do is for line in A, I want you to save that line into a thing called line array, line.rs strip, right? And then split them by comma. Okay. Then take the average would be avg, my line array. Let's see. High low, so 0 1 2 3. So take the third item, starting with 0th item, and the second and the third, meaning the third and the fourth, and then add them up, divide them by 2. What you do is you take my line array, append it, and append it as string. Remember, everything else is string. We want to keep it consistent. Okay. Then what I want to do is I want to do b.write, and I want to join all of that by comma, every single item inside the line array. Remember, line array has everything that came from the file. Then I added one more item to it, and I'm going to say join all of that. And when you're done, also add a new line to the end of it. In fact, let's not run it. Let's see what it looks like. Let's print them. Oops. Let's print this and see what it looks like. Something is off. Average. Oh, sorry. You got to put the word function float around. Put the float function wrapper around the line, because it's not going to run. It won't compute on string, right? You can't add two strings together. There we go. Now I'm turning to float. This should work. There. Oops. Essentially, what happened was we have one more item, right? The date, open, high, low, and you take the average, you get that, and you append it. So it was date, open, high, low, close, adjusted close, and then the volume, and now we have the average price. Great. So let's do it all over again, because we know we reached the end of it. Done. Okay. And should work. Okay, let's do it again. All right, save that, and instead of printing it here into the console, I'm going to write them. There, done. And then lastly, what you want to do is close out your stream or write stream to the file. How do we know it worked? Well, let's look at it. Open goog.calc.csv, c.readline. There we go. Let's do it again. That's it. So now what we've done is, in this simple little application, we've opened up a file, we did some work on it, all right, and as we're reading, we're doing some work on those lines that we're reading in, and we're modifying it, manipulating it, and then we're saving that line back into a file. Now this could be a scenario where you're reading a line from a giant file like 25 gigabyte in size, and you got millions of records, and you're processing a line at a time, and you're saving it into a database, let's just say, or sending it as a message, right? And yeah, so that's pretty much how you read line by line. Okay, let's move on to how to read a zip file. All right, before we move on to the next item, which is reading a file inside a zip folder, I like to include one more thing that I should remember later on. It's reading a file by a CSV reader. Okay, to demonstrate why I need a CSV reader and not just a split by commas, I injected a line, basically appended a line at the bottom of goog.calc.csv. Let's take a look at it. So I'm going to say, and temp, let's look at them, c.readlines. Okay, I'm going to look at two different files, two different lines, second to last one and the last one. So temp -2 gives me the last one, second to last one, and -1 gives me the last one. Now, as you can see, if I was to split them, I'm going to run into a problem on the last column, last row, I mean. Here's why. Now, if I was to do rstrip.split here, this is great. It's going to work out just fine because it only has the elements are separated by commas. What if I had commas in between the commas? So these elements are separated by commas because it's a comma separated value file, but inside them, which is pretty standard in the United States when you write a number and you put a comma every 1,000, right? So if I was to have that, I'm going to run into a problem like so. Like that. Okay. Now, how do we fix this? We need a package called CSV. CSV is a standard package or a base package of Python. You just simply say CSV and say C is equal to. All you do is put a CSV.reader around CSV.reader, open goog.calc.csv, and you say for line in C, print line. There. It's pretty straightforward. CSV parser, the CSV reader knows that how to separate them, that it is a comma separated value element, and it's smart enough to figure out that it should split by these commas right here, but not those, because those were inside quotation. So there you have it. This is why I would need a CSV reader if I was to make sure that I don't run into problems with commas that are in between the actual delimiter. Okay, next step is to read a zip file, a text file inside a zip file. Let's go. All right, finally. So we're done with all of that. Now let's go on with reading a file that's inside a zip or a zipped up text file. You could probably also have a bunch of files inside a zip file, But in this particular example, we have just one file inside a zip file. But before we do that, before we go ahead and read it, you need to import zip file. Okay. Here's the thing. You know when you unzip a file, and you unzip and a bunch of things that I think it's called deflate or inflate, whatever. You're unzipping, and it unboxes itself into a bunch of different files. Now, something very similar needs to happen while sort of in the background or in memory, and you're going to read into that as you're peeling off the compression. So it looks like this. ZF stands for zipped file. Let's call it zipped. Zip stands for zipped file is equal to zip file dot open. Sorry. Zip file. And there you point to gook.zip. All right, like that. Here's the thing. Inside zip, there are a bunch of commands. One of those things is called name list. Name list. See that? So when you opened up, when you instantiated an object of zip file, it now knows that inside that zipped up document exists a file called gook.csv. And the way you go about reading it is A is equal to, just like before, zf.open, and because it's the first item, the only item, I'm just gonna say give me the 0th item. Now if you had a bunch of files in there, you could have said give me the 3rd or the 4th, whichever you want. And there, for line in A, told you the rest of the items would be pretty easy and straightforward and fast. Print A. Sorry, damn, I keep doing this. Okay, let's do it all over again. Print line. There. Now, of course, the lines are in binary, so you can say decode. All right, and our strip, remove the spaces at the end of the string towards the right, and let's do it again. There, done. See all the B's, they're gone. So there you have it. You can now this is exactly how you read a file. Now you're probably saying that, hey, what if I think you're cheating, because you have gook.csv and you also have gook. Maybe it's already open and that's what you're opening. You're not really opening this. Well, let's try opening this guy then, right? So just so you know, I'm not messing around. Let's try opening gook.calc.csv. Not gonna work, because you know why? Because this was instantiated based off of this file. So this one does not exist inside here. So I'm not just, it has to be the file that you open inside ZF. It has to be one of the files that are inside here, inside this object. So there we go. And one last time. That's it. It's as simple as that. Let's move on to the next item, which is reading a compressed Gzip compressed CSV file. This part is also pretty straightforward and very easy and very similar to zip file. So all you do is import gzip and you say a is equal to gzip dot gzip file, point to the file, I believe is csv.gz, and then for line in A, print line. There. Again, if you don't want to read into binary or byte array, so all you do is decode and R strip, and there you have it. All done. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. Alright, so the next part is pretty tricky. It's to do with how to read a CSV inside a zip, which is inside a Gz. Okay, so we already have gzip and zip file imported, so we're not going to do that again, but you are going to need it if you were to do what I'm about to do. So first we need to instantiate an object of a gzip pointing to gzip dot gzip file to our file goog.csv.zip.gz, I think, right? And it didn't find zip file. What are you talking about? We have it. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Goog dot just without the CSV. There. Good. Next. Now this part is the tricky part. You need a temp source. What you have to do, the other way around would have been much easier if it was goog.gz and then zip, but you guys can figure that out. Source, open, and in fact, I'm gonna read this as binary. Okay, RB. And I'm going to create a var temp called temp.zip, and I'm going to make this writable and also write this as binary too. So what I'm going to do is temp source.write gz.read. So as I'm going to read the things that are inside my gzip in binary, I'm going to write it into a file called temp.zip, also in binary. So there we go. Done. Temp source dot close. I'm going to close that up. There. Okay. Next is pretty straightforward. Is zf is equal to zip file dot zip file, and it's going. Now I'm going to point to my temp.zip, right? And zf.namelist should have okay, I must have closed it. It's this one, just complaining that I didn't import it. Alright, so let's do it again. Import, you need to import zip and gzip and zip file, and there, Goog is inside that. Remember, so you see what I did? We read the inside of the compressed gzip file, put them inside a temp file, and then that we then read just like before. Now we're just going to say a is equal to zf dot open. Sorry, I'm like scatterminder right now. Would be zf dot namelist and 0, just like before,
we're going to take the reference, the file which is inside the object ZF by using these function inside the object ZF, like the cf.open and then the name list. The rest is just straightforward. Line in A, print line. That's it. So there you have it. We've completed, I think, well, 4 major different way of reading a text file in Python. A plain simple CSV. We then read a zip, a gzip, then there's the zipped up CSV which is inside a .gz. So yeah, this concludes the demonstration on how to read different files in Python. Catch you guys in the next video.